I'm going to read a story that is The Winds of Blindness. Well, I'm the admin of this page. It's my writing page that is Lost Tale. You can join and promote it because I have created that page for literary kind of discussion and for literary people who have a literary taste. So today I'm going to share one of my friend's story that is The Winds of Blindness with you guys. I hope you guys will like it and comment. If I look into the past and describe what I felt before losing my sight, then it would be a vision of a postman in his sooty uniform walking through the rampart of sky and earth. He was advancing in the pace of a snail, this mail in his hand. I would never want to hold, shall reveal the light of blindness over me and over again, and will be handed as pleasantly as one gives the useless, trusted materials lost in stores. This was where I was destined to fall in. Within few days, as my doctors had surrendered their confidence and I died long before that. Those vaguely I remember I was entrapped by this thought of not even recalling my appearance or the strange strangers that I had known for years. I shall forget them after all. Those clusters of dense smoke fuming and spreading around bit by bit, steadily and nearly thickening into obscurity. I witnessed widening around me, deep down into the core of a mountain where meadows return and heavens thundered grains. I feared to get beckoned by the barriers to return back from where I had travelled and covered miles rumbling and rolling gravel, somewhere beseated than in the corners. Supported, stagnant, nevertheless caught into the game of peekaboo. Behind curtains and delusion of being not hidden as if a child whose fearful of shadows, empty dark rooms, heard a strangeness in one's glance. What I thought fear was, and its cold Sisyphean kind. Last night, while I was in my bed under the chestnut light of lamp that I had borrowed before the curtains had fallen, reading Rumi, I was not permitted to. Nevertheless, this invasion initiated my curiosity to break down through the dark. For what shall happen more than losing the sight? I was always good at satisfying my conscience of the regardless of the captivity of a bird locked with wings and then released in the blue sky featherless. In my struggle of escaping these gridlock mental negotiations, the phone rang. While I was running my fingertips delicately and then scratching them on the pages of braille, trying to climb the mountains and fall then, envisaging how it felt to be a part of that lot her current ran down the spine of puny shudder. I dismayed and lifted floral quilt from one side and let my feet remain warm under my cat's thick fur, who was cuddled upon it at the very side where I usually duck. The moment was evocated by buzzing current of yellow lit lamp standing on the side table. This voice on phone was familiar. Soon, and if I realized it was a man I had asked to meet and share that part of life where one lives like a fish who spends its life invisibly, eyeing the sun through the tremor of ocean waves, shifting and returning, and those streaming rays gently reaching down upon its gaze, gleaming millions of shades upon the fins amid a stasis of soon when it reaches the shore, sun dries it and swiftly waves hand towards death. I wasn't standing on that stage so far. To escape it, I kneel down and we seek for a shoulder, and it was no one else but this man on the phone. He phoned for the assurance of our meeting next morning in the oval ground of our university. There he had been appointed as a teacher, passing another decade. I put down the receiver after we had exchanged a few words in the attempt of finding out the answers of unasked questions. I hove the quilt upon my chest again, which had gotten cold by now, tucked myself and cautiously arranged my slippers on the floor, mat and my own convenience, and waited for warmth to hold it. A long forlorn night it seemed in the moment I plunged the lamp and opened the window at 20 angle. A stream of wind sniffed through my jaws. Crickets chirped, walking, and the crescendo rose. Skin, hair mounted upright like a kingdom of saunas. Silence with terror, teeth rattling like windows, flowed by storm, exultantly afore the blight winter night. The click clocks had forgotten louder. The click clocks had gotten louder and louder. Ink was leaking through the horizon, prevailing the crooks. It was widening with translucent light and interrupting the drama with chirps and hums. A second chirp after a few moments, uttered by the first nightingale again, and then communication and started, of which I was just a spectator, an amused listener, swinging along the bays and reflecting through the leaves. At the junction between afternoon and before an afternoon, I got out of my bed, stood talking to myself, thinking, no, who would notice? Combing neatly the oil hair, its scent would disperse and diffuse into the spirals of fondness by which my cat would recognize me even if I were lost in the world, denounced as Wonderland of the Lost Alice, wandering in the shadows and labyrinths. I locked I locked the past behind door, hired a rickshaw, who took me to the university after a course of bargaining. The bustles were infuriating, reminding me the past that I had unshunned. In a mirror, another horn shouted, followed by the squealing of whales. In the turns of road, turns to return or nowhere. Mayhap, how had I known? Out beyond the sky, tearing the ascending staircase of roads. On the bottom layer, then vehicles on the second and building on the third, with the sharp needle under its head piercing the sky. Was that tower silently breathing under the blanket of fog, and behind the frost of my glasses sported by Nestlebone tugged at the both side. I stepped down, started walking towards the oval. Whether my vision was deteriorating or the world was waning, I was dilemma stricken, for a violent joy. Violent joy played before my eyes was the colors and contrast. It reminded me of the time when I wore spectacles for the first time. Colors emerged as from the full dull world. To the other side of my glasses, I was witnessing the world from. It was a stroll through phantom. I remember that stainless moon. In a still recall I had gotten lot of. Now as I walked outside the market with my first glasses shining and reflecting things like and poised but the moon, that stained moon of whom myths were noted, now clearer than the cloudless sky after a heavy rain in drought. Somewhere the reality was disappointed. I was walking by the entrance when swiftly breeze reverberated me towards the reverberated me through my ears, pulled me towards the parade of grasses in the oval. Out of the corner of my sight, empty benches assembled along the sideways. A kid was sitting there, the blind fellow I had heard much of, keeping his promise of last night. He slanted his face at the first and then turned a little towards the tap of my feet. His lip twitched from a from a corner and eyelids winced. Fingers raised and settled back again on the bench. The first string of violin slipped into the waves, beating the rhythms.